brung it to you because I lied. She brung it to you because I lied.
Damn. Damn, for real. Damn. Yeah, I'm so happy. Oh.
It's a boy.
It's a boy. It's my boy.
Mitchell is charged with shooting Crystal Walton, the mother of his 1-year-old son, outside a daycare at 10th and Holmes as she dropped off children about 7:30 a.m. September 16th.
To see this young lady laying over there deceased and her kids don't know that mommy's not coming home, that hits hard. It really hits hard.
It's obvious that the ball was dropped, and I'm saying that in a candid way, right? The ball was dropped somewhere. They know the system failed. They know there was a failure somewhere.
Crystal Walton was a mother of 2 young children doing everything she could to protect herself and her children from a violent past she had tried to leave behind. On a quiet September morning in 2022, her life was brutally cut short in the parking lot of an Indianapolis daycare, gunned down by Orlando Mitchell, the father of her child and a man she had a protective order against. After his arrest, surveillance video would catch him strangling and taking the life of a deputy that was transporting him. What unfolded before and after Crystal's murder revealed a chilling pattern of domestic abuse, a tragic failure of the system meant to protect her, and ultimately, a violent rampage that would claim not just Crystal's life, but also that of a respected sheriff's deputy. Why was such a violent individual out on the street, and why wasn't Crystal protected? Welcome to Viral Crimes. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories. This story takes us to Indianapolis, Indiana. 32-year-old Crystal Walton was an X-ray technician at Indiana University Health Methodist Hospital. She was a mother to 2 young children, her 7-year-old daughter from a previous relationship and a 1-year-old son she shared with her most recent partner, 33-year-old Orlando Mitchell. Crystal and Orlando were together for 4 years, but behind closed doors, their relationship was marred by a troubling pattern of abuse. Eventually, the cycle of violence became too much, and Crystal made the difficult but brave decision to leave him in hopes of protecting herself and her children. Crystal and Mitchell's relationship had long since turned volatile. In 2021, Mitchell had been charged with 4 felonies involving Crystal, including strangulation, domestic battery, criminal confinement, and intimidation. In March 2021, while 4 months pregnant, Crystal Walton reported a terrifying assault at the hands of her partner Orlando Mitchell. The two had been together for 4 years and were living together at the time. According to Crystal, the incident began when Orlando became enraged after seeing her ex-boyfriend, her daughter's father, outside their home, waiting to pick up his 6-year-old daughter. Fueled by jealousy and anger, Orlando erupted, threatening Crystal by saying, "I'm gonna F you up. I'm gonna mess around and kill you." Crystal recalled that Orlando demanded she abort the baby she was carrying. The situation quickly turned violent when he grabbed her by the neck and began to strangle her, knocking her backward onto the bed. With his full weight on top of her, he continued to apply pressure to her neck, leaving her unable to breathe or call for help. Tragically, Crystal's 6-year-old daughter witnessed the entire attack. In a desperate attempt to protect her mother, the little girl jumped on Orlando's back, screaming, "Get off my mommy." Eventually, Orlando let go. Crystal grabbed her daughter and fled the home, running to her mother's house just 2 minutes away, where she called the police. Despite the severity of the incident, the domestic violence case remained unresolved for over a year. By that time, Crystal had already given birth to the child she shared with Orlando, forever tying her to the man who had nearly taken her life. He spent 1 day in jail and was put on probation for 1 year for this crime. He was only permitted to make contact with Crystal in order to make child care arrangements for their son. He was also ordered to attend a 26-week domestic violence counseling program, complete a substance abuse evaluation, and maintain a no-contact order with Crystal, except in matters involving their son. Despite the court order, Mitchell continued to violate these conditions, instilling fear in Crystal's heart. She told authorities that she feared for her life. Her fear was justified. On July 26, 2022, a no-contact order was issued against Orlando Mitchell as part of a plea agreement he accepted. In the deal, Orlando pleaded guilty to domestic battery committed in the presence of a child under 16, acknowledging the traumatic experience he inflicted on Crystal and her young daughter. In exchange for his plea, the more severe charges of strangulation, criminal confinement, and intimidation were dropped. Just days later, on August 6, 2022, Orlando violated that order. He contacted Crystal, asking to pick up their son a day earlier than scheduled. Crystal told him it wasn't possible, but despite a clear response, Orlando showed up uninvited to the home where she was staying. When she threatened to call the police, Orlando issued a chilling warning. "If you call the police, it will be the last thing you do." Fearing for her life, Crystal didn't call the authorities right away. Instead, she called Orlando's mother and kept the conversation on speakerphone in hopes of de-escalating the situation. After about 5 tense minutes, Orlando left the residence. Crystal then went straight to the police to report the incident, adding yet another frightening encounter to the long list of abuse she had endured. Crystal also reported to police that she received a text message from Orlando Mitchell that read, "You gotta learn to be reasonable with me about my son. If you wanna keep playing, I promise on my life I won't stop until you lose everything. That house, job, and your child. So it's up to you." Orlando was charged with breaking and entering, invasion of privacy, violating a no-contact order, as well as intimidating the victim. On August 30th, a notice of probation violation and an arrest warrant related to this case were both filed against Orlando. This was the consequence of Orlando breaching the no-contact order in the incident that occurred on August 6th. In August, the state submitted a petition requesting that Orlando pay child support for his 1-year-old son. Orlando was supposed to appear in court for the hearing, but he did not show. On the morning of September 16, 2022, Crystal dropped her children off at Charity Church Child Care Center on the west side of Indianapolis. What Crystal didn't know was that Orlando Mitchell was waiting for her in the shadows. Surveillance footage later revealed Mitchell lurking behind a light pole, stalking her movements with chilling intent. As Crystal walked back to her car, Mitchell approached her in the parking lot and opened fire, shooting her multiple times in cold blood. Crystal was pronounced dead at the scene.
And we begin with that deadly shooting. Children witnessed it all.
It happened just outside of the Charity Church Child Care Center on West 10th Street.
Southwest 11, person shot, West 10th Street, North Holmes Avenue, church on the corner.
Friday morning around 7:20, police were called to West 10th and North Holmes, where they found a mother shot and killed.
To see this young lady laying over there deceased and her kids don't know that mommy's not coming home, that hits hard. It really hits hard.
Her family tells us that's Crystal Walton. She was dropping off her kids at this daycare.
It hits home real close and it's devastating.
Investigators with IMPD say the suspect, who she knew, walked up to the woman in the daycare parking lot and shot her several times. 3 hours later and just 3 miles down the road.
Suspicious person, Delaware and Pryor. Possible suspect from the shooting at 10th and Holmes.
A 911 caller spotted a man they believed was involved in the daycare shooting. Once officers arrived, they confirmed the man and the car matched descriptions from the daycare incident. Now police say the man was holding a gun. Soon after, shots rang out.
Shots fired.
Mike, take control, shot fired.
A witness we spoke to at the 10th and Delaware scene shared this photo of the suspect. IMPD says the suspect, Orlando Mitchell, was shot at least once, but did not say whether Mitchell fired any shots. No officers were hurt.
There were probably about 15 or more gunshots, like in rapid repeat.
Mitchell had 2 active warrants for prior domestic violence cases involving Crystal Walton. Murder charges are pending. I know you've been speaking with the victim's family. What have they told you about this young mother?
That this mother was a loving individual. She always kept a smile on her face. Anything that you asked for, she would do.
The city's director of domestic violence programming says Crystal Walton has 2 kids. Now, detectives couldn't confirm it, but say there is possibly an active protective order against Mitchell.
There was a protection order out in reference to this individual and several incidents beyond that protection order. So the main concern is, where did it fail at? What failed?
While awaiting trial for Crystal's murder, Orlando Mitchell committed another horrifying act. On July 10, 2023, while being transported from a medical appointment back to the adult detention center, Mitchell attacked Marion County Sheriff's Deputy John Durham inside the Sally Port. Using his handcuffs, Mitchell strangled the 61-year-old deputy, ultimately killing him. He then stole the transport van and briefly escaped before crashing it into a utility pole. Authorities quickly apprehended him, but the damage had been done.
At 9:03 in the morning, Deputy John Durham places murder suspect Orlando Mitchell into handcuffs and shackles. Mitchell is then loaded into the back of a jail transport van at 9:05. The pair then drive out of the criminal justice campus. Nearly 2 hours later, at 10:56, Mitchell finishes a medical appointment and leaves Eskenazi with handcuffs and belly chains secured. At 11:15, tragedy ensued when Mitchell steps out of the transport van after being returned to jail and immediately wraps his handcuff chain, which he had somehow slipped off, around Deputy Durham's neck. The pair then struggled for nearly 2 minutes before Deputy Durham's neck was broken. A Cumberland officer then walks up and notices Mitchell driving away in the transport van and calls for help. Sheriff Kerry Forrestal admits chronic understaffing played a role in those events.
Less manpower leads to deputies taking on more responsibilities, which leads to an increased risk, which can lead to tragedy.
Documents released earlier this month show the sheriff's office failed to follow their own internal policies of using 2 deputies to transport murder suspects to medical appointments. The sheriff says those policies are now being followed.
I want to assure our community that we are taking the necessary steps to eliminate any opportunities for those who would wish to carry out harm against our staff.
While 2 deputies were terminated for substandard performance and 2 other supervisors were demoted, the sheriff still pins the blame for the death squarely on Orlando Mitchell.
It wasn't understaffing that killed John Durham. It was not faulty equipment that killed him, nor was it complacency. It was Orlando Mitchell.
Deputy John Durham, a 38-year veteran of the Marion County Sheriff's Office, was a husband, a father of 4, and a beloved public servant who came from a law enforcement family. His death shook the community once again, just as they were beginning to process Crystal's. In 2024, after a 3-day trial, a jury deliberated for just over an hour before finding Orlando Mitchell guilty of the murder of Crystal Walton and invasion of privacy.
An Indianapolis man is headed to prison for 1 murder. Soon, he faces a second trial for his alleged role in another murder.
A Marion County jury today found Orlando Mitchell guilty of killing the mother of his son outside of a West Side daycare in 2022.
It only took the jury about an hour to reach a verdict.
Crystal Walton's father, Chris, says today's guilty verdict is indescribable and something they've been waiting on since 2022. While the defense asked the jury for a guilty verdict, they claimed Orlando Mitchell just snapped and was acting in sudden heat.
I know she's overjoyed with the outcome. I love her with all my heart, and I speak for everybody.
During the trial, surveillance video from the daycare was shown to the family. Mitchell was seen waiting for Walton to arrive. He then hid behind a light pole while she took the children inside. When she walked out, the clip shows Mitchell run up to her and shoot her.
I was able to see my daughter alive one last time. I saw her getting out of the vehicle, walking to the school.
There were tense moments in the courtroom as Mitchell and Walton's family started mouthing words at each other.
When we saw the vicious attack on her and how he just gunned her down, we flipped. I'm just keeping it real. That was a lot to take.
After shooting Walton, Mitchell was shot in the leg after being confronted by IMPD officers. But that wasn't the end of Mitchell's trouble. In 2023, Mitchell attacked Marion County Deputy John Durham as Durham brought him back from a medical appointment. He choked Durham to death with his handcuffs. Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears says this first guilty verdict sets up the possibility of the death penalty for Mitchell.
This is important for the Walton family, but it was also important because it's related to the other case. One of the statutory aggravators that has been alleged is that there was a prior murder that had occurred. And certainly this is evidence that will be very helpful in being able to prove and demonstrate that.
Orlando Mitchell is scheduled to be sentenced for Crystal Walton's murder on April 1st.
The evidence was overwhelming: surveillance footage, eyewitness testimony, and a documented history of domestic abuse. Prosecutors painted a clear picture of a premeditated execution carried out by a man who refused to be held accountable. Mitchell was sentenced to 66 years in the Indiana Department of Correction for Crystal's murder. Still pending are the charges related to the killing of Deputy Durham, for which Mitchell could face additional decades, or even life in prison. Crystal Walton's murder is a tragic reminder of how deadly domestic violence can be when cries for help go unanswered. My condolences to the friends and family of the victims. May you continue to heal and one day find peace. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.